Hello and welcome to Beyond the Point podcast with me, Ali Christensen. I'm curating the content I wish I had had as a dancer and creating strong, healthy, thriving dancers for the future. Not only am I your host and ex-professional dancer, but I own Align Fitness here in Huntington Beach, California, and I'm the creator of online courses for dancers such as lower body flexibility and turnout for dancers. Today on the podcast, I am very excited to be diving into a specific method of cross-training. I've invited fellow trainer and friend to come onto the podcast and talk about the GYROTONIC Method with me. Now, if you follow along on Instagram at Align Fitness by Ali, you know that I am GYROTONIC certified and it's one of my movement loves of the world. And I knew that I wanted this trainer to come on because she works with professional dancers in San Francisco, training exclusively in the GYROTONIC Method. She is someone that when we get talking, we can totally geek out about all the mechanics and ins and outs of the method, what works, what doesn't, what we see with our clients. She's also a great friend and someone I just love spending my time with. So I'm so excited to introduce you guys to her here on the podcast. There's so many methods of cross-training and there's a lot that really aren't fantastic. And there's a few that are really, really gems. And I think that the GYROTONIC Method is one of them that transcends movement. It ties so perfectly with moving inside the studio and outside the studio and assisting you to find the correct muscles as a dancer to move and lift your leg into an extension, to have a port de bras, to lift into arabesque. This is really a great method for that. Over the next little bit, my goal is to have expert trainers in different methods on here to share with you how they use cross-training for dancers and why it works so well for them. And I wanted to kick it off with the GYROTONIC Method because it's one of my faves. Okay, so today I have Sam Anton with me from San Francisco. I am so excited. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, thank you.
Oh, I'm so happy to have her here. I knew from the beginning, starting this podcast, that I wanted to have Sam on because she's like my gyro buddy. And we met doing some of our training together for GYROTONIC. We knew each other before that or knew of each other before that. But I really started to get close to you when we started randomly connecting during some of our certifications. So as you know, if you're listening, I'm GYROTONIC certified and I do a bunch of other stuff. And Sam works exclusively with GYROTONIC. Yes, she's nodding her head.
Yes.
And she has quite an amazing array of dancers who come to her. So Sam is one of my favorite people to talk gyro with and to see what's going on in her world. So I knew instead of me talking about GYROTONIC, I wanted to bring her on and make her talk about GYROTONIC.
I'm so happy to be here to talk about GYROTONIC. I just have fallen in love with the system, and I found it through my BFA programs with the Alonzo King Lines ballet program. Mm-hmm. And throughout those years, the system I found had completely healed my body of so many injuries, and I just knew I had to be a part of it. So I got certified as fast as I possibly could in college and was teaching the last 2 years of my program and have been teaching it ever since.
Yeah. And, I have a similar story with GYROTONIC that goes back to when I was like 15. I actually went to Lines Ballet to audition for the summer program for the first time. I remember that my grandma and grandpa who live out in that area took me. So those of you who don't know, which is probably most of you, the area that Lines Ballet is in, especially 15 years ago, the word sketchy doesn't even begin to describe it. So it's gotten much better as time goes on. Last time I visited, I was like, oh, this is like almost a normal city. But before that, it's very sketchy. So my grandma told me as we were walking through the city, don't look anyone in the eye. Drop your eyes down and don't look anyone in the eye. Because there's a lot of sketchy people walking around the city. And that was my very first experience of San Francisco, coming from Utah, where everyone is friendly and you say hello to everyone on the street. And I was like, what city am I in? But on top of that, so I'd auditioned for Lines. I wasn't even sure I was going to go to that summer program. I had a clicking hip issue that was really painful. And the orthopedic surgeon had said, if you keep dancing, you're going to end up with a hip replacement. That was time number 1 that they told me I'd have a hip replacement. And I went to the summer program thinking that was my last time.
dancing completely. And we did 4 gyrotonic sessions in gigantic groups, as Sam, I'm sure we'll talk about. And my clicking hip never came back. And I was out of pain and I was able to continue training. I ended up at Lines where I met Sam and so forth and carrying on. So we have a very similar story, how we got introduced into gyrotonic. So I'm so happy, so happy to have you here talking about it. So tell everyone, because everyone's tired of hearing me talk about gyrotonic, tell me what you think gyrotonic is. How do you describe it to your clients?
I know it can be kind of tough, especially if you've never seen the movement and you've never seen the equipment. And even if you have seen it, it looks a little bit crazy.
And sometimes people say, gyro what? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Gin and tonic?
Yeah, right. Gin and tonic. I get geriatric. So they either think I'm working with old people, which we do sometimes, or honestly, I've had people ask me, is that pole dancing? I'm like, oh.
Yes, because no. It sounds like gyrate or I don't know.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, no, but I can see how you get there.
Yeah, it's a system of movement, and gyrotonic is on different pieces of equipment. And I would say that the goal is to decompress the spine, and that decompression then leads to alleviating the joints of pain. And this is all done through healthy and supportive while strengthening movement. I think that the special thing about it actually is the circularity of the movement. It's not so linear based. There's a lot more freedom for your body to do the natural movements that it should be doing on a daily basis.
Right. I think that linear thing is a big difference between other methods. A lot of my dancers come and have done Pilates. I did Pilates growing up.
I did too.
Yeah. So that people always ask me, well, is this like Pilates? And I say yes and no. And the linear is definitely a big part of it. And the circularity of gyrotonic feels very different than working on like a reformer in Pilates.
Definitely. And the movement is more fluid in the body. Mm-hmm. So there's not many static positions or holding of postures. There's a lot more focus on how your body is currently moving. So I like that portion of it too. It just also made sense in my dancing body. I think it's definitely a healthy way to go from dancing into proper movement for the body to then be able to take it back into your dancing.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, gyrotonic felt better in my body, which is why I ended up going down that pathway. Being someone that felt always tight, even though now I realize that dancers that describe themselves as tight or unflexible most of the time are not, but they have this feeling, this restriction in their body. And Pilates never gave me a freedom of movement that dance did. And so when I found gyrotonic, I felt strength and control with that freedom of movement. And so for my body, it also just made sense. I have clients though, or I should say I don't really have clients, but I have friends who are professional dancers who came from the same programs that you and I did at Lines, who were just different bodies. They didn't like gyrotonic. they felt like they needed more control. They needed a little bit more maybe static training. And that's totally valid. That's one reason that I now incorporate a little bit more, or I have the ability to incorporate different aspects of training, because gyrotonic is not for everybody, but it does feel good.
Oh, it feels great.
It feels so good. And I do love the training. I love the way dancers move after they've had a good gyrotonic session.
Oh, absolutely. You can see it the second that they stand up or sit up from what they have just been doing, and they walk out of there usually saying like, wow, I feel so tall. I feel so long. I feel so energized. And length is a big word, which I love.
Yeah, because we're always looking for length. We're always talking, your dance teachers are always saying, lengthen the front of your legs, reach through the legs, reach through the body. And it can be an elusive feeling that's like, how the heck do you want me to do that? I'm reaching. How do I make that? Yeah, I'm reaching. How do I make that internal feeling that the teachers are talking about? And that is what I felt in gyrotonic. And that's what I think both of us are working to create within our clients.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So Sam, you work with a lot of professional dancers. You're in San
I do.
Francisco. You work a lot with San Francisco Ballet dancers. You're very close to them. How did that relationship kind of start getting into those professional dancers there?
I think since I was just in the dancing community in San Francisco, I would be taking class with a lot of them. And since I was already teaching gyrotonic, it was kind of an easy conversation of how the movement transformed my body and my technique and my artistry. And it just felt like an easy conversation to open up.
Yeah.
So I kind of fell into it, which was great. Yeah.
That's the way most good things happen, I think.
Yeah.
You never plan them. Yeah. They just happen. So if you check out Sam's Instagram, which is Spiraling Sam,
yes,
you will see some of the most phenomenal movers because
they're fantastic.
All of them are, high level professionals. I'm so jealous of just watching their bodies every hour. It's like every video you post, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's stunning. It's mesmerizing how beautiful their movement is. Now they have elite level training and they are the top companies in the world. And then they're getting to work with you and you have such an eye for how dancers should move that we were talking about as far as that length and that expansion and the connection, because I see in dancers and knowing how I felt when I was 16 and 17, trying to expand and get long while still feeling control and tight in the best sense of the word, but connected is really challenging.
Definitely.
How do you find your professionals coming in and experiencing that? Is that something that they also feel challenging, even though you work with a lot of principal dancers from San Francisco? So do they have those issues too?
Yeah, I think that a lot of those issues kind of go across the board for dance in particular. And it seems that when you start to get to the professional level, dancers receive far less corrections than they would if they're training or younger, taking class every single day. A lot of times their class is more of a warm-up and there's 80 other people in the room. So they're not getting the attention that they could. So I think that gyrotonic has become like their personal time to rework their technique, to like relearn new ways to move and to really fine tune their instrument. So it really is their time focused on them.
Yeah. I hear that often from dancers that go either to a year-round school like Houston Ballet or something like that, or they make that jump into professional company and they come back and I say, how is it? They're like, it's good. It's just different. You're so used to having correction on top of correction being nitpicked at as a student. And when you step into the professional realm, you're left to your own devices. And really, that's when your own personal work has to evolve and grow even more intense, in my opinion. If you want to go from pre-professional to the top levels of a company or a commercial dance career or whatever it is, I actually think there's more work involved after you, quote, get the contract to rise through the ranks, because nobody is paying attention to you. They only pay attention when you do what they want. But to do what they want, you still have to work. So that's a tricky level. And I can see where your dancers come in and work with you to have that personal time.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Yeah, some dancers come into gyrotonic and use me kind of as their coach, to rework their technique or to help them in that way. But a lot of times they come in also just to be put back together because they are in just such intense rehearsal mode and show mode that sometimes they really need to come in and be put back together.
Yeah, definitely. I experienced the same thing with the pre-professional beginning training levels. I think that sometimes parents and dancers, because I see a wide range of age and level, and I think you see more of that smaller elite level being right there in San Francisco. Yeah. But I think the problem is the same from beginning to end. I don't think we realize as dancers or parents how much the right type of cross training for that individual body, whatever that is,
definitely
can assist with the problems and the issues. So instead of waiting until an issue so big that you have to go see like a sports medicine person or end up in the orthopedic office, if you're being consistent in your training outside of the studio, you can catch these things. And when you're with the right trainer, then those things just fall into line and you're put back together. And
Definitely.
there's definitely things that both of us cannot work with, or we have to say, okay, this is the time that you need to go see someone else. You need to go see a doctor and make sure that there's something not wrong. But I would say a big majority of the issues that people come in with, we can fix in a session and put back together, and they go off into their dancing career and they feel great. And we solve so many issues that could perpetuate into career-ending injuries.
Exactly. It's such an injury preventative system. It really teaches you how to rework your body. It's a way to relieve all of the compression we talked about and grip patterns. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is such a thing that I'm sure you see as well. And it becomes a whole pattern and it's a chain reaction.
I see it often that when we're talking about that gripping, I instantly think of the hips.
Absolutely.
I'm right there.
Pelvis,
that hip flexor.
Sure.
Yeah. People saying, oh, I feel like I have grippy hips.
Yep.
So one, I feel like the method and the equipment, I think the equipment is what really makes the difference. There's also the gyrokinesis method, which is without the equipment. So I should say the quality of movement in which you're teaching is that of gyrokinesis, but the extra assistance that assists you to feel how your leg can move in space without gripping and what's possible in your joint as you stabilize and then find freedom, I think is accentuated and what dancers love with the equipment than being in gyrotonic.
Yeah, it definitely just gives the support that you need. It gives you the freedom of movement. It lets you release certain things to be able to accentuate others, which, let's be honest, in ballet class, sometimes we don't have enough time to do all the right things within the terms of the combination. So this gives you a second to kind of brainstorm and really figure out how you're working and what is working. Because it is so mind-body. It's so mind-body.
Yes.
And that connection is huge.
Yeah, so much of everything of our patterns comes brain to body. And
Definitely.
there's definitely having the correct training for your body that assists you to do something in a certain way, or sometimes the way we verbalize things, both as teachers and trainers, really makes a big difference. But a big thing is sometimes just letting your body feel what it should feel like to move in X, Y, and Z, what it should feel like to have your leg float up into a side extension and feel free and no pinching, gripping hips and feel like you're supported from under while pushing through the floor and da-da-da-da.
Yep.
So the equipment really does allow that. And I think that that's a big, big part of why dancers love gyrotonic.
Couldn't agree more.
Yes. So as you've gone through your gyrotonic training in both, so let's backtrack. I want to backtrack. You did your training at the BFA program in Dominican. And what did that look like? You said by your last 2 years, you were teaching. So I get a lot of questions about where did you get certified? What did you do? How did you do it? So I think this might be a nice, those of you who've asked me this, here's an answer. Here's a way that this is possible. You had the opportunity because of Lines in Dominican to push together your Lines ballet training and now your gyrotonic training, which is, I believe, correct me if you know I'm wrong, the only place in the world right now that you can do that, where you can be in a school and walk out with a certified gyrotonic trainer.
Correct.
Okay.
It was the Lines dance program has a situation with San Francisco Gyrotonic where in 4 years you can leave with a degree in dance as well as have the potential to become certified in gyrotonic or gyrokinesis or both. And freshman year, I felt that I had just found the system for me. My body was healed of all of these injuries. I was a different kind of dancer, and it really just spoke to my body and my heart. And I knew that I wanted to get on top of it. And so I talked to Deborah. Deborah Rose is the owner of San Francisco Gyrotonic. And I did my training with her. Let's see, when was that? My sophomore year, I started the training, and I kind of did a fast track, which I was the first one to do that. I still don't know if anyone's done that now, but I was certified by the end of my sophomore year. I did it within 6 months and then was teaching while I went into my junior year. So that was huge for me. It was so much better to me than potentially working at Starbucks while I was in college. This was something I loved and I knew that I wanted a career in. And for it to be possible through the program was amazing. So yeah, it's a very special program, and it's the only one that will allow for that within the college dance sphere. And I couldn't be more thankful for it.
Yeah, it really is an amazing opportunity to have all that education pushed into one 4-year spurt. So if you're already in college, that's that opportunity. But also, I have to say that the training that Deborah Rose has put together in San Francisco, Deborah Rose was a dancer with Lines Ballet back in the day. And she's in the same building as Lines Ballet, San Francisco Dance Center. If you've ever been there, they're on the 4th floor.
Yep.
I believe I still remember that. I'm like thinking of the stairway as I'm walking up every morning when the elevator was out. Guys, this building still has an elevator with an
elevator man.
Yes, with an elevator man. There is literally someone that has to operate it. Otherwise, you won't be able to go where you want to go.
I think it's the only one in San Francisco left.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's cool. So you made friends with the elevator man, and when the elevator was out, that meant you were walking 6 flights of stairs to get where you wanted to go. That's what I was thinking of. How many flights was it? Anyways, Deborah has put together a really amazing opportunity, and she really has an eye for training dancers. So and training teachers to train dancers, but as well as the BFA program, which you now teach for. You now teach the BFA kids.
I do. And it's such a cool program to teach. Each semester we focus on a different program. So it starts freshman year with just level 1, learning the movements on your own body. And you kind of get filtered through the years into being able to do Gyrotonic for Dancers program, which I also teach a group class of that, and I advertise a lot because it is a fantastic program. And so the senior year is very exciting because you get to do that dancer specific work. Yeah.
So what we're talking about is that when you're getting certified, which this doesn't apply to most of you, but I'm going to say it because I get these questions. When you are getting certified, you get certified as I'm going to say like a general trainer. And then once you're certified, there's different, we call them applications that you can go and get certified in. Learn, and the dancer program is one of them. And again, a perk of being with the BFA program is you get it all smushed into one and you don't have to go search for it. But you teach the BFA students. You also teach the Lines Ballet training program, which is another program within the building, but they don't end up with a degree. They are training all day in dance, correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's a 2-year-long program. And it's like a year-round training program as to the BFA, where you're also doing college courses as well.
Right. So you get the chance to work with high-level dancers that are like that pre-professional, just waiting to bud level.
Yeah, it's such an exciting time to witness and be a part of. I really enjoy it.
Everyone is so hungry for knowledge at that point. If you're going to spend 2 years in a program, or you're going to go to college for it, you are hungry, but you better be hungry to learn movement and absorb as much as you can, both as a dancer and whatever else they're throwing at you. Otherwise, it's not the right program for you. But it's really fun to see. Lines Ballet is, I think, known for their artistic ability and their way of bringing out dancers. I mean, I want to say like the artistry, but it really is like, how do you bring the dancer out of you? And that complements gyrotonic training so well. So it's fun to see that switch where it becomes just movement and just cross training into, wow, this really does, they mesh perfectly. There's no gyrotonic and dance. They are one in the studio, one outside of the studio. They become that crossover. It's really fun to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I was in the training program years and years ago at Lines, and gosh, guys, I feel so old sometimes when I realize I can say that was 10 years ago and more. Okay. But I now get the chance to go back during the summer and work with the summer program and teach gyrotonic during the summer. That's also a fun time because there's a lot of you guys there.
Oh
and
my gosh.
Yes, there are so many people in that studio. But it's another opportunity to watch dancers' brains make a little bit of a shift into how do these two go together? How do they complement each other? How do I take my cross training, make it the dance, and then dance, make the cross training? And it's something that I don't see happen in other systems. I'm open that there is something that has individually worked for dancer over here, dancer over there. But I would say across the board, being able to take your cross training and mesh it into your dance movement so perfectly I've only seen it happen with gyrotonic so far. Kind of switching gears, what do you feel like quality that your professional dancers are finding in themselves? How do you think that our students or dancers who are listening right now could work on that inside of the studio without having experienced gyrotonic? I know that that's like, oh, okay, let's think about that for a second. But there's things that I know you see, and if you guys go and look at her Instagram, Spiraling Sam, you're going to see what we're talking about. There's expansion and length and connection, but what are maybe one or two things you feel like these dancers could work on in the studio, or an image or something that you like to put into gyrotonic that works well with dance?
Yeah, I think it's just approaching movement from a healthier mind frame. I think that we tend to get into the studio and it's all about achieving what our teacher is asking of us or requiring from us. And I think that pleasing mentality that I am completely, that is me. I get it.
Yes, we all have that.
Oh my gosh.
Dancer. It's been ingrained in us.
Yeah. But being able to go into it almost like nurturing your body and going about it in a mind frame of how can I work well instead of pushing myself to do something that I know doesn't feel good in my body. So it's empowering your own voice. It's empowering yourself to recognize what you're gripping. And that's what I see the most is how do we get dancers to know the difference between engagement and gripping? And I think that's hugely important because gripping just brings so much stagnation into the body. And why would we ever want stagnation if we're trying to have freedom of movement? That in and of itself doesn't make sense. So it's how do we work differently? And for me, what I see the most with dancers is the pelvis tucking. And I mean, we hear it from all of our teachers, suck in your stomach, push your butt under or tuck your butt under.
And pull up through your hips.
Oh yeah. Pull up your hips. And while those are valid corrections and responses, the way that we get there is not so great. We tend to do whatever we possibly can to tuck that pelvis under. And that really just causes kind of a lockdown of the whole pelvic girdle. And it's amazing the chain reaction that comes from the tuck. I mean, it goes, the glutes start to squeeze, your quads are now all of a sudden in gripping, and your feet are rolling because you're probably not supporting your turnout because you're squeezing your butt and gripping your pelvis. And then the second our feet roll in, we go, oh shoot, I know I'm not supposed to do that. So we roll our feet out and now the front of our shins are on fire.
Yeah.
It's a whole chain reaction. And so I think finding a way to get your pelvis in a place where you have your sits bones reaching towards the ground as opposed to tucking under so they're reaching under and forward, I think that is major. And it actually helps your turnout. It's amazing.
It
actually helps. So but we have to let go of that dancer ego a little bit to get there, which is really, really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard to retrain 20 years of verbal cues that are going inside of your head. But if you guys go to my Instagram and kind of scroll back, if you're listening to this at the date we've released, if you scroll back, you'll see there's a video of a dancer standing in second, holding straps. Watch that video. We are talking about going down into grand plie without tucking the pelvis. And what I see happen, and this is, I'm so glad you're saying this. You guys, if you've listened to the podcast, this is probably like the fifth person we're talking about this because it's so major as
major.
Sam just said, everything happens from the hips. So it's so vital that the hips be in the correct position. Mm-hmm. But what I see happen, or what I see happen in the brain mentally, is dancers try to lengthen their low back. They tuck their pelvis under. They try to hide their glutes, tuck their pelvis, lengthen their low back, and pull up in the hips. But when you do that, like you said, your sit bones are now pointed diagonally forward. And it causes anatomical issues in the hip that result in long-term injury. So you'll be able to watch this dancer 2 times go into Grand Plie, and they're both pretty good, but the second time she does it is phenomenal. She goes straight down, and you can see that her legs are actually rotating in the socket, not pressing into the hips and getting that roll in that you're talking about. So if you're wanting to know what Sam is talking about with how the heck do your sit bones go straight down without tucking your pelvis, that's a video you can look at. Also, third time I'll say it, if you go to Sam's Instagram, you're going to see a lot of her dancers going through these phrases of movement, and you will notice their pelvises are not tucked under. They have butts. You know, you have a glute muscle that is not gripping, but because it's in the right position, it's activated. I love what you said about knowing the difference between activation and gripping, because especially in the butt, I think that's a big one.
It's huge.
I used to say, don't use your butt because I didn't want the tuck. And I've revisited and reverbalized how that is, because it's not that you're not using it, but it's an activation, not a gripping, like you're trying to pinch a quarter between your butt cheeks or something. It's totally different feeling. And when you realize that, it becomes much more natural in your hips and the way that you move your body as a dancer.
Definitely. And I think teachers give those corrections, and they give those visualizations, which are important for us to have, but coming from an anatomical place, you sometimes need a different way of saying things for it to work well. And I see it all the time, especially when we talk about how you point the foot. So something like pointing the foot, we check out our teachers. Our teachers were probably these beautiful ballerinas, and
that were tortured into crazy.
That were totally tortured.
Yes. And sorry, we have to throw that in there. They were definitely hung up on stretchers and pulled in every direction.
Stepped on.
Hit with sticks. And yes, they were tortured to be that beautiful, and we don't like to torture our dancers anymore.
Definitely. And so you see these teachers with just a beautiful facility, and you see these gorgeous feet, and we think, oh, I want those feet. So to get that, I'm going to point as hard as I possibly can until everything hurts. So it actually cuts the line, because you're gripping to get there. And then we wonder, wow, why does my ankle hurt? Oh, that's weird. I have tendonitis. Well, duh. We're just doing everything we can to grip into that point instead of actually strengthening our feet to get to that place and keeping it with a length focus.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's so big knowing what activation versus gripping is. And it's hard to feel that in any manner.
Definitely.
But I like I like what you're saying. I also say the same thing, that our teachers they're just saying what visually is happening.
Yeah.
They're not saying what is anatomically happening, or necessarily just using the best cues. That these are cues that our teachers said. And I'm starting to encourage my dancers. Well, I always tell them, okay, when you hear this, you're thinking this. And so we start to make that little switch in their brain. They find that their teachers don't make those corrections anymore. But what I'm encouraging dancers to do now is, when they get a cue or a correction, to take it a couple literal layers deeper. So if it's pull up in the front of the hips, it's probably pull up in the center of the hips. If it's tuck your butt, it's probably center your pelvis. If it's connect your rib cage, it's probably bring your spine back. So just taking away those external cues that we're getting that are so outside of our, not external cues as in far reaching, but just that like top layer of our body that we're getting those visual cues for. And they have to be deeper, and they have to have a feeling behind them, what it feels like to be floating, uncompressed, moving freely. And if you are gripping, you're definitely not moving freely.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
And you see it in professional dancers. You can tell the ones that have that beautiful energy that's just kind of exuding out of them. And you see the freedom. And so we kind of have to emulate that a little. I mean, it's a lot of work to be able to get to that place, but it's so important. And that will honestly keep us healthy and give us the longevity we need to continue dancing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big part, I think. Well, I mean, at this point, I know most of the injuries we see as dancers are probably based on some type of compression.
Yeah.
Right. The inability to hold your body with freedom or without compression in the spine, in the hips, and the knees. And learning to move like that is hard because we don't learn that. Did you, when you were learning to walk, was your mom like, okay, now float your pelvis, No, you just learn to walk. And then when you're in PE at school, they're not teaching you how to run with form. They're not teaching you how to squat with form. They're just making you move. And we've already developed all these weird compensation patterns. And I had a client I was talking with who was saying that their hip replacements were hereditary, that they were genetically like passed down through her. And I was like, wow, no, they're not. No, they're absolutely not. Your movement patterns that you visually learned are genetic in some way because you from a toddler watched your mom and dad walk. And if they had hip replacements or they had certain issues, their walking patterns, their moving patterns are definitely going to be that of somebody who has a hip issue. You learn to walk that way, you learn to move that way, and then you create an issue. But I think when we think, oh, I have bad knees, my mom has bad knees, I'm going to say like 5% of the world could probably say that. And that might just being generous to cover my butt. These are learned patterns, unless you're born without something, like you're not born with cartilage or you have an extra this. Our patterns are learned, and learning to move as a dancer with that decompression and that floating spine and the pelvis and the work and the takes a lot of work. And as you just said, your professional dancers of the highest caliber are still working on it. Do a lot of your professional dancers that come in, are they coming in multiple times a week?
Yeah. So some come in twice a week, some come in once a week, but they have a great system set up. Well, right now I'm going to talk about San Francisco Ballet in particular. They have a great system set up where they can have 2 opportunities a week to do some sort of health related class or session or treatment. And so, a lot of them do gyrotonic, and they will probably use one of those sessions for it, or some of them use 2. So it's really a treat to be working with them.
That's amazing. That's what we all.
Yes. When we love to have gyro once or twice a week.
Oh my gosh. I remember I literally cleaned a trainer's apartment in trade for gyrotonic. I did everything. I did whatever I had to do to get a session. And that's an amazing, I have to applaud San Francisco Ballet for that little hashtag right here. That's amazing that they are taking care of their dancers that way. And don't we wish that every dance opportunity could do that and financially take care of their dancers that way?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Well, we are kind of coming up on our time. Sam and I can keep talking.
Oh, we can talk for hours.
We can talk for hours. So I want everyone to make sure that you go check out, 4th time, Sam's Instagram, Spiraling Sam. I will tag it underneath.
Woohoo!
Yes. She is, as I said, strictly gyrotonic. So if you like what you've seen on my Instagram of my gyrotonic posts, you're going to love her page because it's just post after post of beautiful dancers doing beautiful movement, working hard and learning how to move their bodies. Definitely check it out. If you're in the Bay Area, I highly recommend that you do a session with Sam. Even if you're not looking to add in something weekly, you want to just get another eye on your movement and see what she has to say. Guys, she's good. She's working with amazing dancers. She's really, really great and has a fantastic eye for little tiny nuances. So I encourage it. Ask for your birthday. Parents, get your kids in there and let Sam take a look before any injuries start popping up.
Thank you, Sam, for coming on the podcast. And thank you, everyone, for listening in while we talk about the benefits of the gyrotonic method. If you would like to find a trainer near you, if you go to gyrotonic.com, there's a little button for find a trainer, and you can see if there's one in your area. If you are in the Southern California area or you're going to be traveling here during the summer, you're welcome to book a session with me. Summertime is one of my favorites because we have a couple kind of destination workshops here in the Southern California area, and I get a lot of dancers from all over the world who come in and work a couple times during the summer when they're here with the workshops. So it's so fun to see everyone's movement, get to see people from different parts of the world, and introduce you guys to different methods of cross training. And again, if you're in the Bay Area, you can find Sam, and the best way to get hold of her is on her Instagram. And thank you again for taking time each week to listen in here with me. I do not take that lightly. I feel so honored and such a responsibility that you're wanting to spend an hour a week with me and hear what's going on in the dance world with Align Fitness and with other experts in the dance world. And I truly am so grateful for your messages, sharing your aha moments and everything that you're loving with the podcast and on Instagram. It really does light up my day, and I'm so happy to be able to share your ahas with other dancers because that's how we all learn. And I'm very, very grateful for this platform to be able to share my knowledge and bring in experts in other areas. If you haven't left us a review on iTunes, this is the perfect time to do it right after such a fun episode. Go ahead and leave us a few sentences sharing what you love, and this will assist other dancers and parents to find the podcast. And if you're someone who's not listening on iTunes and doesn't have a way to review, because that is a thing, I would be so happy to share on Instagram your review. If you direct message me at Align Fitness by Ali on Instagram, I would love to share your review of the podcast and highlight your Instagram there. So don't be afraid to direct message me and say, this is my review for the podcast. So I hope everyone is having a healthy week, staying healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I will see you all next week back here on Beyond the Point.